Hey guys, Nick here for my first video in like a month. And it's funny, I kind of feel like introducing this as like a Friday series, once a Friday, once a week, Frank Friday or something where I'm frank. Cuz today I have very frank thoughts um to get off of my chest to alleviate my own my own mental clockwork just chewing on this subject matter nonstop. But the truth is, and I'm probably going to do it. Welcome to Frank Friday, even though all of my videos are just this, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm really pulling out minimal stops to make this any different. Um, just be glad that I didn't follow through with my idea for Modelo Mondays. Yeah, because I used to occasionally like to buy the big glass 2 pint bottle of Modelo, and I always thought it would be funny to do a Modelo, Monday stream or video where I'm just slurping on that bad boy. And I'm not entirely convinced not to do it anyways, but neither here nor there. Um, you'll probably get it from the video title because I'm gonna name it something piffy like AI this or that. I don't want to lose my job or something because clever wordplay, haha. Uh, we're talking about AI today, and from my age range, and I think probably all young people in the workforce, a lot of young adults, anyways, and even probably people of an older age demographic than that. People really worry these days about AI and robotics job replacements. Some of my very favorite like comfort podcasts to watch or something. Every now and then I have to tune out when the subject comes up, um, because the concept and the subject matter and the discussion really um, kind of raises this like bubbling type of anxiety, like irrational anxiety and worry for the future. Whereas I'm a person who feels like in most other regards, I've really gotten on top of and found preventative and coping measures for like excess unhelpful like anxiety in my life, but not on that subject matter. um and I think that's really relatable to large swaths of the population, should be relatable to all of the working population. Forgive me for playing with my hair here, y'all. I'm fresh out of the shower and I'm trying to make my old devil horns everywhere go down, but they don't do that. I'm friggin' Italian. This is just how my hair is. Well, I say it's funny that I worry about this so much because, you know, from previous videos and a lot of my subject matter, I'm sure you guys have gathered that um, I like thinking about things generationally in series of, you know, the decades within and directly previous to my life for like historical and social context and generationally, of course. And, you know, several of my videos involve me talking about concepts like boomers and the previous generations, the silent generation, and the greatest generation, and how much different things were for those generations. Um, Not that I feel, incredibly antagonistic or whatever towards those generations, but statistics bear out that we are in, as far as American culture goes, and not just American culture, but specifically here in the US, we're at like a historic inversion of the previous trends of previous generations where each sequential generation kind of did better for their children, and I think every generation wants better for their children, but we're several generations now into a US um, trend, at least broadly and generally, you might say on average, or maybe even at the median, that each subsequent generation has been sort of lacking educationally, health wise, lifespan wise, opportunity wise, wage wise, cost of inflation and cost of goods, market value of homes wise compared to their excuse me, previous generations, their parents and their grandparents. And so, this is all sort of tied into why I say, although I worry about this type of a thing and I get this almost irrational, sometimes irrational surge of anxiety and frustration and worry and fear for the future over AI and robotics and how it may impact my livelihood. The truth is, another side of me and, the coping part of my brain, my instinct center for self preservation, wherever it is, I feel like it's right here. It's like right here, right around under this nice baloney, baloney, bony part of my thick skull. That's where the self preservation instinct should be. That's where the lobe should be. Um, it sort of ties all of this knowledge in to a coping mechanism, like a little gremlin in my mind, or a little smug, pompous British voice dude that's like, hey, you know, good for you. Like, and I don't real all of me doesn't feel that way, but like the best way I can explain it is to sort of make a comparison in parallel to how many times growing up or in your young adulthood, have you talked to someone who's 50 or 60 or 70 or old as fuck or like thinks they're old as fuck and they pine for their youth. Oh, I wish I was your age. um and it's funny in my public interactions these days, I'll hear that old fogey line, well, if only I were your age, 28 or 22. But then I'll kind of hear an inversion of that. Actually, no. No, I don't want to be that age in today's society. The inversion is felt publicly and has been like baked into people's minds as well. And so now it's really kind of like, I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like this instinct in me is born out of this type of a feeling of like, oh shit, I'm glad I'm not too much younger. And I feel like that is starting to become a part of people. Like, people are almost sort of, if they're not a complete doomer, so to speak, not just like everything is shit and will always be completely repetitively more shit progressively throughout all my life. And I don't know. I guess all I'm saying is if you're not completely defeated, it's almost as though people are embracing more of a aging like fine wine type of a thing. They want to get older and they want to get out of the fucking job market and out of the rat race and be a pensioner. Being a stodgy old fogey pensioner is like a lot of the people who are so antagonistic in the younger generations towards the older ones, you have to admit, is out of envy of this social and economical inversion in our society. And a lot of it, not all of it, no, not at all. And I harbor some of those feelings myself, but I can acknowledge in me and certainly hypothesize in others where that feeling is just born out of kind of the awareness or at least the thought of, and subsequently the envy of knowing that or thinking that somebody won't ever get to be the old taking care of pensioner and just envy for that. Anyways, the thought occurs to me to explain it less cynically, because I don't think this coping thought process in me is entirely selfish or unaltruistic, but I do feel like the train jumped the tracks, folks. Give me a sec. Give me another sip of coffee to remember what I was saying. Um, the thought process is basically, wow, for how I worry about it, I actually view myself in the shoes of, you know, and you guys are gonna call me boomer brained or fucking boomer derangement syndrome, but those are the people who raised me, and my grandparents were even the older generation, and my great grandparents were the older generation. Despite my age, I grew up with older fucking family, and so they're my most direct parallel to, you know, um, and like direct ancestors. Um, I see myself in those shoes as well. Like, wow, as much as that anxiety might raise up in me, like I've had a chance. I've been in the labor market for over a decade, probably 15 years now. And that sounds like a boomer thing to say, but I got my first job, a job that, increasingly won't exist if it even still exists now. Pretty soon it won't exist. At 14 or 15, I was a paper boy, for 10 cents a paper. And that is like an antiquated experience and story now, but in the early 2000s, that was my beginning of my job experience. And just knowing that I've had a chance, and for instance, I'm nearing my 30s in the next several years. And in a year's time from today, I will be, um, reaching kind of the payoff zone of pursuing the trade work that I'm pursuing in my life. I'll have the certification, and then even a year after that, the degree, and the ability to switch industries from one of these jobs types of industries that I have worked for many years in my young adulthood, that you would be most concerned about being replaced by AI and robotics, a customer service retail job. I'll be going, I've had a chance, I've had the opportunity to grow, develop good working skills, and whatever resources I've managed to make through that paradigm where that kind of work gets you somewhere. And then I'm getting to take a step up into a trade work that, while it's not the very most high paying type of work you can think of, it's the kind of industry that people take for its higher pay than customer service and its optionality. It's on the cutting edge of taking the best advantage, I think, of the current day um, employment market and the job market. And there's no reason to be secretive about it. I'm going into IT work, starting with a trade certification and then an associate's degree. And that opens you up to in person, remote, hybrid work. It opens you up to consulting. Go on fucking, um, was it Fiverr or Fever and post yourself for gig work. Like post on the local Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist that people can use you as a resource if they pay you. Um, it transitions into working with AI, and it's a good ace to have up your sleeve. So, anyways, my point being not to brag, but well, I guess kind of to brag, but really just by way of explaining my own coping thought process is that I still see myself being on a path where like achieving through sacrifice, and I have become an adherent to the idea of putting in some of that early sacrifice to come up with the investment money and the nest egg for, emergencies, and to try and get myself active and rooted in a as secure and safe a place as I can economically while the opportunity is available. And I get the opportunity to move into a more secure trade built off of, low level or low skill or entry level work, retail, customer service. But, that whole paradigm really, I believe, comes handed down from our corporate masters as something that they try to implicitly, express and bake into our minds that that work is not doesn't take anybody special to do, and it's low skill and low level, except for during a pandemic when all of a sudden we're essential workers, right? But I don't think we'll see that happen again. We'll sooner probably see the AIification and the automation of those jobs. And, the ruling class attempts to instill in us this mind frame where we feel like we somehow deserve it or we're not worthy of having the livelihood in place of that. And I mean, even the way I talk about this replacement, you can tell it kind of comes from an emotionally driven place of anxiety because realistically, even we all know in our ruling class in this country knows they can't just replace everybody's income uh, automatically. Like, how can you pump out endless fucking garbage bullshit and expect people with no jobs and no money to buy it? There'll be maybe a UBI, as I've heard, Paul's ego of ideology and deep fat fried. Suggest in years past, there will probably be a minimal UBI or a tacit um, beneficial, but very low, how do I want to say it? Very minimal expansion of some kind of social safety net that gets money into people's pockets for consumption, not for bettering themselves or for saving or investing beyond just survival and living bump to bump, paycheck to paycheck. They don't want us too well outside of that category, and it'll be a work income replacement thing. um, so wild tangents aside, um, I'm basically I see myself as one of the people who is going to be viewed in 20 to 30 years, just like how my generation right now, today, current day, views pensioners and old timers and those who are replacing or on the path to replace their income and their expense necessity by passive income or earned resources, hoarded resources to live off of when you get older, and people who were just able to go into a location in person and offer the sweat of their brow for compensation that even if they had to sacrifice to make it stick, these people were able to make it stick, and make something of it and preserve and reserve some of it. We look at people who used to have pensions today, like, oh man, you used to just be guaranteed victory and everything. But I'll probably be viewed in 20 to 30 years as like, man, you were given the chance to work with your hands and go do soul crushing work, but still have like some autonomy to earn an income. The grass is greener looking back every generation, I guess. And so, while I don't envy the fact that we're in that, it's like a bittersweet coping relief that it is a thought process that gives me some peace of mind knowing that I'm probably going to be okay. I really have the opportunity. And as much as I sometimes feel like I'm just barely squeaking out of a system that's shutting its jaws on my generation and young people like a trap, the social compound is long abandoned and the squeeze is on. The pressure is on, and people feel when they're being institutionally squeezed and oppressed systematically, generationally, and the malice. Maybe not everybody, but people can sense the malice that comes out of it. Like I've more than alluded to, like I've expressed in this video, it's purposeful and it has to be done tactfully enough. But as our population becomes fucking stupid, less and less tactfully does it need to be done. But nonetheless, I know that even though I sometimes feel like a rat being squeezed through a funnel just to earn his cheese, I've got it better than everyone who's going to come before me, likely. And, I laugh, I giggle, and I smile a little. I don't envy them that. But I see myself, as we all end up doing, growing into my parents' shoes, the shoes of my forefathers. And partially as a result, I mean, I could easily have a doomer mindset myself and see myself on the bottom of the totem pole in the food pyramid, whatever, the food chain. I don't see myself there. There used to be a time when I did as a young 20 something, but more as a result of just adolescent moodiness and growing up, not having a fully developed brain yet, not having the future seeing ability and the self awareness and the ability to socially and historically contextualize my own experiences. I now see that. And also as a result, like I say, as somebody who's been willing to put in the early life sacrifices to start climbing some amount of elevation towards, hey, I maybe someday I might be comfortable. I could someday achieve the dreams and the comfort and the life stability that I want to achieve. And I can't necessarily say that that's true for the next generations. I think there will always be, or always until the collapse, which is always slower than we think societally, economically, as a country, even when we're in the middle of it. We're in a free fall right now, economically and culturally, and yet it's not one big collapsing event. It's always slowly. I think there will always be, until the collapse, the final collapse, there will always be people hardworking, sacrificing, and conniving, and resourceful and crafty enough to get by and to get what they want. But there's always going to be an increased squeeze on them, I feel. And maybe that's rooted in a bit of a doomer mindset or a pessimistic mindset. But I see myself as an optimist mostly, more so than not, even if it might come from a root source ideology that other people see as nihilistic, which it is, but not necessarily therefore pessimistic. I'll always say it. I've said it for over a decade now. I've always, since I've felt grown into this philosophy and like it's rooted into me, my philosophy in life is very, I call it nihilistic optimism. I do feel optimistic for myself, but and I hope I'm wrong, but I do see the future looking bleaker. And so, for subsequent generations under me and under them, and basically just came on this video to express all of that to you guys, to get it out of my head and out of the gear grinding factory, out into the world. I do hope I didn't inspire any bubbling anxiety for any of you listening, but I get the feeling that a lot of you will sort of be comforted, or at least have a sense of camaraderie in hearing someone else talk frankly about these things. It's pretty satisfying to come on a video and be able to post it to YouTube and talk about this kind of stuff frankly and have anybody at all listen to it, because this is such a hard type of conversation to have in real life for a lot of reasons. Excuse me, a lot of reasons. And don't get me wrong, it's not the first time I've had this conversation, and I've had it with people close to me, but it's manyfold. This is not something that's encouraged in any way to talk about this kind of a thing at work or in public a lot of times. I mean, you're welcome to, but then there's also the fact of other people don't feel comfortable doing it around other people in public, even if they kind of want to. And also, who do you know aside from your really good friends and family, people you really love and who really love you, who sits down and has a going on 25-minute conversation with so many words and such and not that I'm Mr. fucking nuanced genius or whatever, I'm not. But who even has a conversation like this anymore unless they really love each other? Like this kind of dialogue is completely disincentivized in discourse. Discourse is not this anymore, even though I wish it was. I kind of grew up being educated to be able to express myself in such a way. But I look at the kids younger than me, and I don't mean to say that they're bad or all stupid or all whatever, but I had an exceptional educational experience within my own rearing years that a lot of my peers never got. And to compare it to the expressive skills and the attention span and the discourse ability that I see from younger adults than me now these days, holy shit. I mean, it's nice to be able to have this type of a conversation. And I imagine for some of you, it's nice to be able to hear someone express themselves like me in this way, at least from time to time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know how annoying it can be if you constantly have to hear someone prattle on like what I'm doing. But I like to listen to people prattle on like what I'm doing right now. I listen to the Deep Fat Fried guys and Paul's Ego, and I listen to TJ, the Amazing Atheist. Most of the stuff that all of those guys come out. It's the content I listen to while I mow the lawn or do chores or even just have a coffee in the morning, the first coffee of the morning or whatever. So I like to think that there's still some interest, and there doesn't have to be infinite interest. As long as somebody's listening and somebody got something out of it, I'm really glad that I could bring this kind of content to you guys. So that about does it. That about wraps it up, and I have 12 minutes to finish getting ready and go to my work. That praise the Lord, hallelujah. I'm privileged even to have. In another 10 years, the work and job position probably won't exist. So I'll cheers you to that with a little bit of coffee, minimal creamer, and the fuck is TurboTax texting me? Okay, squirrel moment. Appreciate you guys. Mwah. Have a good one. Bye.